Angie Stone's legacy began with a voice, one that soared through church rafters in rural South Carolina and ended up reshaping the very foundation of R&B and Neo-Soul. For decades, she stood as a trailblazer, navigating an industry that rewarded her with fame but also threatened to swallow her whole. Then came a fateful night in March 2025 when a single horrifying accident cut short the life of this powerhouse vocalist just as she was on the verge of exposing what she claimed were decades of hidden exploitation. Was her tragic demise merely a cruel twist of fate? Or did her relentless fight against a major label place her in harm's way? Strap in, because what began as a gospel-fueled dream transformed into a whirlwind of love, betrayal, bold accusations, and a sudden devastating end that has left fans everywhere searching for answers. Long before she commanded global stages, Angie Stone was known as Angela Brown in Columbia, South Carolina. Her home resonated with music from dawn till dusk, particularly gospel, thanks to her father's local quartet and a devout upbringing that placed the church at the center of everyday life. Every Sunday, Angie's soaring voice punctuated hymns, sending chills down spines and planting the seeds for something monumental. Even in these early years, she stood out for her raw emotional connection to every note she sang. By her teens, Angie was itching to break free of small-town limitations. While her father provided the foundation, encouraging her to find her authentic sound, Angie looked beyond the pews. She dreamed of taking her passion for gospel and blending it with something fresh, something the world hadn't quite heard yet. At barely 17, she got her wish. A chance meeting led to the formation of The Sequence, one of the very first all-female hip-hop groups. Known initially as Angie B, she burst onto the national scene with Funk You Up, a track that etched her name into hip-hop history. This was a bold new chapter, not just for Angie Stone, but for women in an emerging genre that had yet to realize its own power. The Sequence kicked open doors that had long been locked for female MCs. Angie's vocals were laced with that unmistakable rasp and soulful undercurrent, even when she was rapping. Audiences took note. Here was someone bridging the sacred and the street, weaving gospel influences into a gritty, unpolished form of hip-hop. The world was changing, and Angie was determined to be at the forefront of that change. Yet, the deeper she ventured into the music business, the more she glimpsed the underbelly of an industry fueled by money, power, and contracts that were rarely written to benefit the artist. Those early experiences taught her to keep her eyes open, even if it would be years before she fully recognized the scope of what was happening behind the scenes. Hip-hop was only one part of Angie's story. As the 1980s blurred into the 90s, her heart and voice gravitated to R&B, a place where she could fuse the passion of gospel with sultry melodies. She found a transitional home in the group Vertical Hold, scoring a minor hit with Seems You're Much Too Busy. This period sharpened her songwriting chops, letting her explore a more melodic register while still preserving that edge born in the church pews and hip-hop studios. A turning point arrived in 1999 with her debut solo album, Black Diamond. Critics immediately hailed it as a statement piece that reintroduced Angie Stone to the world, this time as a soul singer of profound depth. Tracks like No More Rain, In This Cloud, bled with vulnerability, sincerity, and the nuance of someone who'd lived more than a few lifetimes in the industry. Radio embraced the single, and fans discovered a voice that felt both classic and entirely modern. Angie herself described the record as a testament to spiritual resilience, the diamond forged under the black pressures of life. Her follow-up, Mahogany Soul, 2001, elevated her to a new echelon. Songs like Wish I Didn't Miss You became instant heartbreak anthems, providing the soundtrack for listeners nursing broken hearts or longing for second chances. More than that, the album thrust Angie Stone into the center of the Neo-Soul movement, a wave that included Erykah Badu, Jill Scott, and Lauryn Hill, artists who challenged the boundaries of R&B and shaped it into a more introspective, groove-laden genre. Angie's name became synonymous with realness, and her vocals, carrying the grit of gospel, the punch of hip-hop, and the warmth of classic soul, garnered multiple Grammy nods. Every success added another layer to her legend. She scooped up Soul Train Lady of Soul awards and performed to sold-out crowds who found hope and catharsis in her music. Though she soared professionally, Angie remained somewhat guarded, mindful of the pitfalls lurking in an industry that often discards its stars once they've served their purpose. That caution would someday escalate into open confrontation, but for now, Angie's star was on a steady and seemingly unstoppable rise. As Angie's albums racked up praise, her personal life took center stage in tabloids and gossip columns. She became romantically involved with R&B sensation D'Angelo, and together they formed a neo-soul power couple. Beyond the glamorous veneer, Angie played a key role in nurturing D'Angelo's distinctive sound. She recognized his genius early on, helping shape his artistry right as he was poised to become a cultural phenomenon. They had a son, Michael, which fans took as the perfect union of two soul luminaries. But love stories in the music world rarely follow the script we imagine. D'Angelo's sudden ascension to superstardom put unrelenting pressure on their relationship. Angie later reminisced that when she met him, he was just a shy kid with a guitar and big dreams. Within a few years, he was an international sex symbol, overshadowing the quieter but no less formidable presence of Angie Stone. Their breakup, though heartbreaking, reflected the intensity of fame. Angie was left balancing the demands of single parenthood with her own career, which carried on, albeit with fresh emotional bruises. Then came one of the juiciest reveals in her personal history, Idris Elba, before he was and, as Angie recalled, made it abundantly clear he was head over heels. At the time, Angie brushed it off. She was still reeling from her involvement with D'Angelo, and saw Idris more as a friend, or maybe younger brother figure. Years later, once Idris became a global icon, Angie admitted with a playful sigh that she might have reconsidered if she'd known what was coming. It was a small, personal anecdote, yet it showed a different side to Angie, one where potential romance and career intersections lightly danced around her, always overshadowed by bigger battles and bigger heartbreaks. Beyond romance, controversies occasionally dogged her steps. She faced rumors of backstage disagreements, run-ins with other artists, and even spats fueled by social media. Household name had a major crush on Angie Stone. He was cast in one of her music videos. Still, Angie generally kept her head down and her focus on music. Any friction in her personal life seemed almost mild compared to the much larger clash looming on the horizon, a clash that would pit Angie Stone against one of the mightiest institutions in the entire music business. In late 2024, Angie Stone dropped a bombshell that rocked industry circles. After decades of producing hits and believing that her royalties and publishing were handled by her labels, she discovered glaring financial discrepancies. The magnitude of what she found was staggering. It wasn't just a few missing checks, it looked like entire streams of revenue had evaporated, or never reached her hands to begin with. Most damningly, Angie pointed the finger at Universal Music Group, UMG, one of the most powerful corporations in music. She accused them of systematically withholding or outright pocketing royalties for her work that spanned multiple albums, singles, collaborations, and licensing deals. According to Angie, the amounts weren't just off by a small margin, they were essentially non-existent. "They've taken pretty much everything," she said in a viral video that made waves on social media. Suddenly, fans realized the full extent of the betrayal Angie hinted at for years in cryptic interviews. The timing of her accusations raised eyebrows. Why come forward now, after so long in the business? Angie explained that she had only recently gained access to certain financial records and licensing agreements. Upon review, she and her team noticed glaring irregularities that pointed to a pattern of exploitation. It wasn't merely about money, though. Angie framed it as a moral crusade, an opportunity to pull back the curtain on how many veteran artists are systematically shortchanged. If it was happening to someone as prominent as Angie Stone, what about the countless others lacking her platform? Her revelations spread quickly. Industry veterans privately admitted they weren't entirely shocked. Underhanded royalty maneuvers are as old as the record business itself. But Angie's willingness to name names, specifically targeting a behemoth label, set her apart. Her message struck a chord with aspiring musicians and longtime artists alike who cheered on her courage, yet it also painted a target on her back. Bold claims of corporate malpractice rarely go unanswered, especially not when the accused entity has endless legal and financial resources. Angie seemed unfazed. She was prepared, it appeared, to take the fight wherever it led her. No one could have guessed how swiftly that fight would end, at least for her. February bled into March with Angie Stone on a creative high. She was still performing for devoted audiences, even as she prepared to escalate her dispute against UMG. On the night of February 29, 2025, she performed a spirited show in Mobile, Alabama. Fans described the concert as electric. Angie hit every note with a confidence that felt unstoppable. Afterward, she and her crew packed into a Mercedes touring van, bound for Atlanta. Laughter, excitement, and post-show adrenaline filled the cabin. Somewhere along Interstate 65, at roughly 4 a.m., that energy collided with tragedy. Their van flipped on the highway. Reports varied on whether a tire blowout or an evasive maneuver started it, and before anyone could regain control, an 18-wheeler slammed into them. The carnage was immediate. Metal twisted, glass shattered, and the van lay wrecked on the roadside. Of the 9 people traveling together, Angie Stone was the only one who didn't make it out alive. News alerts hit the airwaves by morning. Angie Stone, R&B legend, dies in tragic crash. A collective outcry followed, flooding social media platforms with heartbreak and disbelief. She was only 63, still brimming with creative fuel, poised to wage a groundbreaking legal battle, and widely loved by multiple generations of fans. Her passing felt like an impossible blow. Fellow musicians posted tearful tributes, with some praising her unmatched voice and others condemning the cruelty of a world that would let an icon die in such a jarring way. The outpouring of grief from her children was especially raw. Diamond and Michael, her daughter and son, issued a statement that captured their stunned sadness. "Our mother was our lifeline, our mentor, and our inspiration. We never imagined losing her like this." Media outlets revisited Angie's storied career, from her days as Angie B to her role in shaping Neo-Soul, painting a portrait of a fearless artist who never compromised her vision. For a moment, it seemed the world paused to honor her. Then the pause broke, giving way to mounting questions that took the tragedy to a darker place. And so, Angie Stone's legacy stands unshaken, reverberating in every note she left behind and every artist she influenced. We may never get answers to every question sparked by her shocking exit, but we can choose to honor her by demanding better from the institutions that profit off brilliance, yet too often neglect the hands that create it. In that sense, the Queen of Neo-Soul's final act might not be a heartbreaking curtain call. It might be the opening lines of a larger dialogue, one that challenges the world to do right by those whose gifts make it richer, fuller, and infinitely more alive.